Herzlich willkommen zu unserem Webinar zum Thema Cannabis und CBD-Produkte in Portugal und Israel. Mein Name ist Undine Zach-Palvelli und ich bin seit über 2 Jahren hier in Tel Aviv die stellvertretende Wirtschaftsdelegierte am Außenwirtschaftscenter. Ja, wir freuen uns sehr, dass unser gemeinsam organisiertes Webinar mit unseren Kollegen vom Außenwirtschaftscenter in Lissabon auf so großes Interesse in der Business Community in Österreich gestoßen ist und wir Ihnen in der kommenden Stunde viele neue innovative Inputs aus den beiden Vorreitermärkten in dem Bereich Cannabis, Israel und Portugal, liefern zu können. An dieser Stelle schalten wir auch live zu unseren Kollegen nach Portugal, Esther Matzer und ihr Team und die Speaker von Pangolin Solutions. Herzlich willkommen auch an euch. Wir fangen in Tel Aviv an und ihr kommt dann direkt danach dran. So, zur Agenda, kurzer Überblick, wie gesagt, Welcome und Intro. Wir starten mit Lilach Avidov hier in Israel als unsere Speakerin, die schon hier ist. Dann geht es weiter nach Lissabon, dann haben wir die Q&A und dann erzählen wir Ihnen, was die Next Steps sind, wie es weitergeht, vor allem bezüglich unserer Zukunftsreise. Bevor wir aber mit unserer Speakerin loslegen, haben wir Ihnen 5 Facts zum Thema Cannabis, CBD und vor allem Cannabis Technology zusammengestellt, also CannaTech nennt man das. Es geht praktisch um das Stichwort Emerging Mega Market Marijuana. Bis 2024 erwartet man, dass es sich zu einem Marktpotenzial von knapp 100 Milliarden entwickelt. Das heißt, das war auch einer der Gründe dafür, warum wir uns jetzt dazu entschlossen haben, das Webinar zu machen, weil wir einfach finden, dass es großes Potenzial für österreichische Firmen in diesem Bereich gibt und Israel als auch Portugal da ganz weit vorn dabei sind. Und eben auch unser Ziel ist, dass wir die österreichischen Firmen auf die Trends aufmerksam zu machen. Das heißt, es gibt ein großes Potenzial, vor allem wenn man auch jetzt die anstehenden Änderungen bei Regulierungen etc. mit einbezieht. Es gibt sehr, sehr viele unterschiedliche Anwendungsbereiche. Das nennt man auch so the Great Unknown. Die Cannabispflanze besteht ja aus über 100 einzelnen Stoffen. Das heißt, viele sind noch nicht erforscht im Detail. Das heißt, man erwartet, dass es da zusätzliche Anwendungsbereiche gibt, also mehr als Medical Cannabis, als nur Kosmetik oder eben auch die Nahrungsmittelindustrie. Warum sollte man von Anfang an bei diesem Thema nach Israel schauen? Israel ist seit den 1960er Jahren hat da eine Pioniersstellung mit einem bekannten israelischen Forscher vom Weizmann-Institut, der die ersten Forschungen im Bereich Medical Cannabis angestellt hat. Und deswegen sehen wir eben auch großes Potenzial und es hat sich viel entwickelt. Israel ist führend im Bereich F&E, was das Thema Cannabis Technology angeht. Und wir haben über 100 Cannabis-bezogene Startups hier in Israel. Und deswegen haben wir uns eben auch entschlossen, das Webinar für Sie gemeinsam mit Portugal zu machen. Zum Schluss jetzt noch ein kurzer Hinweis in eigener Sache. Das Webinar veranstalten wir auch, weil es als Vorbereitung für unsere geplante Zukunftsreise gilt, CannaTech Israel im März 2020. Findet Anfang März, vom 3. bis 5. März statt. Sie können sich bis Anfang Februar anmelden und als Kurator dieser Zukunftsreise wird auch die Cannabis Practice Deloitte Israel mit der Lilach aktiv werden und uns da gemeinsam unterstützen und Ihnen ein tolles Programm zusammenstellen. Das heißt, nutzen Sie die Chance, jetzt mal Inputs zu bekommen und sich dann für die Zukunftsreise anzumelden. Yeah, at this point, I think I will switch to English and I would like to welcome very much Lilach, our speaker from Deloitte Israel. Yeah, thank you very much for taking the time for sharing your inputs, and I think the floor is yours.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you all for joining. My name is Lilach Avidov. I manage the cannabis practice at Deloitte Israel, and I want to give you a short overview and brief about what is cannabis and why does Deloitte have a practice about it. So So cannabis, I know cannabis, and I know in Austrian you call it humph. So it's kind of the same, and we'll go into the details. So cannabis is a plant that's been with us for thousands of years, and it has a lot of different things you probably heard about, if it's CBD or THC or terpenes. So just to be clear, cannabis is a plant that's been with us since ancient Egypt and ancient China. It's usually used for medicinal use, but you can have it for well-being, to calm you down, go to sleep. And inside there's more than 800 active ingredients. Most of them are not known yet, and they're still trying to discover it. The first person to actually discover one of the ingredients was an Israeli in the 1970s. His name was Professor Meshulam in Hebrew U. He discovered the CBD and THC. So what is the CBD and THC that we hear about in the news and we read about it in the papers? So CBD and THC are actually only 2 components out of the 800 that are very active in the cannabis. CBD is known to be a little more relaxing, and the THC is the more psychoactive ingredient, but they both have a lot of medicinal use. And when you bring all of the cannabinoids together, all the different ingredients, it has a lot better of effect. I can talk hours only about this, but I think I'll move on. But if you have any more questions specifically about these, I'm more than happy to answer at the end. So why is actually cannabis and CBD so interesting to the world? So you saw a lot of change in the last years. It was banned in the 1960s and 70s, and then it came back. It came back because of the regulation that changed in the world, because they started to do more and more research. They understood that cannabis has a lot of attributes that not a lot of people know about. Those days they didn't know, sorry. And now they're starting to find it out, if it's for medicinal use, for well-being, for calming yourself down. So more people wanted to use it in different ways. The regulation started to understand and research into it. So now cannabis is partly legal or starting to be legalized in most of the world. You can see that the regulation has changed since the 1990s. It started with California. It was the first state to actually legalize medical cannabis, and it spread. Now most of the world has some legalization or some regulation talking about cannabis. I can give an example. In Israel, we have medical cannabis since 2008. We have more than 60,000 patients already. It's one of the largest places in the world with number of patients per capita. But you see Canada, Europe is growing, and it's definitely something that we see it's going to grow with the years, and all countries are going to have to deal with the amount of people who actually want it. So they're changing the regulation slowly. As the regulation is changing and market is opening, and as you heard at the beginning, it's a very large market share. A lot of people and a lot of industries are getting into it. Different technologies can use cannabis in different spaces. Now you see big alcohol companies, big tobacco companies, and they're getting into cannabis for a few reasons. It could be a reason that they understand that a lot of people are going to smoke or use cannabis instead of drinking alcohol, or they can actually put the cannabis inside an alcohol. For an example, you can see drugs, Novartis, it's an FDA-approved drugs for epilepsy. So they're actually taking the cannabis and making it as a pharmaceutical drug, not only as a medical cannabis that you can smoke or tinker with oils. You can see a lot of people using now cannabis in creams. It has anti-aging, and it renews your skin. It takes down inflammation. Some people say it's very good for eczema. So you see a lot of different uses in it, and almost every industry that you can think about. It could be even tourism, and it could be technology. So cannabis is starting to disrupt the whole industries. So there's a lot of potential still to discover with cannabis, and a lot of different uses to use it with. So because it's growing so much, so the markets are showing let's say positive trends towards it. There's Cannabis has started in a very slow years at the beginning of the 2000s, and it boomed in the last few years, especially because of regulation and open markets. And it's supposed to only grow exponentially because more and more markets are opening it up, and it's not opening up slowly. It's if it's medicinal, and then it's all well-being. So you have a lot of usages and a lot of worlds that are opening up. These are just a few numbers that you can see now, just to, let's say, lean your ear to understand the potential that most countries and most markets haven't even started tapping into. So there's really a lot to do and play around here. I want to go a little about why cannabis in Israel. I don't know how much everybody knows about Israel, and but Israel is it's a very great place for technologies. As I said, in the 1960s, when all over the world cannabis was banned and you couldn't touch or do any researches, actually in Israel, someone did research. It's called Professor Meshulam, and he had a few assistants, and he found out the few ingredients, like I said, CBD and THC. And from then, Israel hasn't stopped doing researches or developing technologies. More and more companies are growing. So if all of the world joined us in the late 1990s or beginning of 2000 for the earliest ones, Israel has been in this field for quite a long time. As well, as you can see here, Israel is great in the agriculture, as we are living in a desert, but we know how to grow. We develop different ag tech technologies and innovation. We're using it now in the cannabis as well. So who would have believed that we can grow cherry tomatoes in the desert? Now we can grow cannabis there as well. So there's a lot of surprises here. There's a lot of startups coming up. There's more than 150 startups only in the cannabis space in Israel, and they come from different fields. Some are doing genetics, some are doing sensors, some are doing analytics, AI, kind of like you would expect in any ecosystem, with various startups and technologies arising. So in cannabis, you can find a very large array of whatever's interesting to you in other untapped markets. So I think I'll leave it to this. I really hope to see you soon in Israel. And if you have any more questions, feel free to ask. We're going to have Q&A soon. And wait, there's still more surprises to come.
Thank you very much, Lilach, for your inputs. I'm sure we have actually more time later to tap into these things in detail when we have the Q&A. At this point, we would like to switch to our colleagues in Portugal. The stage is yours.
Danke, Undine. Herzlich willkommen, Botard aus Portugal. In den nächsten 20 Minuten liegt der Fokus auf den konkreten Rahmenbedingungen in Portugal für medizinisches Cannabis und CBD-Produkte. Mein Name ist Esther Matzer, ich leite das Außenwirtschaftscenter Lissabon und bin gemeinsam mit Eva Mandl in meinem Team bei Fragen rund um die Marktbearbeitung gerne für Sie da. So, warum Portugal? In diesem EU-Land tut sich extrem viel. Bis 2028 soll das Marktvolumen auf 1,1 Milliarden Euro wachsen. Seit Jänner 2019, seit einem Jahr, gibt es konkrete gesetzliche Rahmenbedingungen hier in Portugal. Seit Juli gibt es Medikamente in den Apotheken auf Verschreibung zu kaufen. Über 40 Unternehmen haben bereits um eine Lizenz angesucht, darunter auch Unternehmen aus den USA, Kanada, Australien, für die verschiedensten Bereiche, sei es Anbau, Verarbeitung, Verkauf oder Export. 5 Lizenzen sind bereits aktiv. Wir sprechen dabei von einem Investitionsvolumen von 200 Millionen Euro. Anbaufläche liegt bei 1000 Hektar. Wir haben auch all diese Fakten in einem Infoblatt zusammengeschrieben. Wenn Sie Interesse haben, schicken wir es Ihnen gerne zu. Das alles bietet natürlich interessante Chancen für österreichische Unternehmen. Und nicht nur, wenn sie in dem Bereich selbst tätig sind, sondern auch, wenn sie Ausrüstung, IT-Lösungen für den Anbau, die Verarbeitung von Cannabis anbieten. Und damit möchte ich auch gleich zu unseren Speakern kommen. It's a great pleasure having 2 experts from Pangolin Solution with us today. They are a consulting company specialized in the cannabis industry. So to my right is Carlos Nunes, and we will be joined in a minute by Eduardo Esteves. So Carlos, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Esther. Thank you for the invitation, and it's been a pleasure to be here, and I hope you could join us the rest of the webinar. So I will talk about medical cannabis in Portugal, and it's been quite popular in our country for this industry, not only because the law it's kind of permissive to this kind of market, but I mean a lot of multinational companies are coming from US and Canada to establish their facility here in Portugal and have access to the European market. Because it should be the next big market in the world for the medical cannabis use. So why Portugal? So we have three main reasons to choose Portugal to grow or to manufacture medical cannabis. One of those is the positive and the solid legal environment that we have at this moment. So it's very clear for any investor to know exactly what they can do in this industry in terms of investment, getting a permission from the government, and also what is in terms of growing the plant itself, what is possible and not. So we believe that this could be a plus for the investors in terms of knowing exactly what they can get from in the future. The second reason, and this is more specifically for growing, for the cultivation, it's our geography and the climate that we have. So I believe we have a very special spot in Europe where you can have a lot of sunlight every year, and the climate is very. I mean, I would say that's like a great one for growing cannabis. So this also with one or two countries in Europe, Portugal could be one of the best places to establish this kind of facility. And the third one, and we also believe this is very important for any investor, is the high skilled professionals that we have here. We have a lot of universities that they are producing high skilled pharmacists or agronomists that will be the key for the success of this industry in the future. So by saying this and what we can do in Portugal, it's quite obvious for all of us. We can grow, we can manufacture, and we can do the extraction or do the medicines, or for example, we can distribute a final product here in Portugal and also in other countries in Europe. So as we belong to the European Union and as a member state, we can, for example, introduce one product here in Portugal. If it is authorized by our authorities, then it could be sold for the rest of the Europe. So this could be one of the main things that the investors could look if they come from United States, from America, or Asia, or other countries outside Europe. So in terms of what is necessary to get into this business, you need. I mean, the investors they need a license, a special license for growing or for manufacturing or even trade the products. So the roadmap it's a complex process. It will be not easy, but of course it's possible. And if we have a solid business plan and we have the right partners, it's very it could be possible to have the license. And for that, there are three major things to get the license. One of them is, in fact, choosing the land where you want to grow. So, in fact, there is any kind of restrictions in terms of the size of the land and how you will do your cultivation. So you can do outdoors, you can do inside of a greenhouse, or even a vertical farm. Of course, we here in Portugal, as we have a lot of sunlight, we advise to have a greenhouse. in order to get the most profitability from by square meter, of course. But it depends on the location, and it depends on the infrastructures that the investors already have. So I mean, but the first option should be a greenhouse. So the land, it's mandatory, as the license is granted by one location. And the second, it should be, I mean, you should follow all the quality control system in order to, so the authorities, they want to know exactly where are your crops, which quantities and where they are. So it's very important to be, everything will be, has some kind of traceability of what you are doing. So for the cultivation, it's mandatory to have the GACP, and for the manufacturing, it's the GMP. So there are two main guidelines, and and GACP means good agriculture and collection practices, and GMP means good manufacturing practices. So those are the main control systems for quality that the investor must follow in order to get the license. And third, and perhaps the most important, this is also needed if you want to do, for example, if you want to get the trade license, it's mandatory to have the good distribution practices as well. So this is in all the cycle of the product. And third, and perhaps the most important thing is, in order to have the license, you need to have the LOI, so the letter of intent. This means that you need to have some contacts from buyers that they want to buy your product. This is a non-binding contract, okay? But Infarmed, that is our authority here in Portugal that is granting the licenses, they want to make sure that those companies that are buying your product, they have the right licenses to have the products at their hands, and of course where it is and what are the quantities once again. So this is very important, and it's perhaps, if you have this kind of piece of paper, the rest it will be easier to get the license. In terms of what you can grow, I mean, it's there is in fact not any kind of restriction. It's just a matter to understand what varieties that you want to choose, the cultivar that you want to choose for your land, and then Infarmed will grant you the license to grow that specific plant. So in fact, it's like we can choose whatever we want, as long as Infarmed, our authority, will allow you to do that kind of stuff. Right now, I will just present my colleague, Eduardo Esteves, to speak about the CBD market. So, Eduardo, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Carlos. Good afternoon. I'm here to talk a little bit about the CBD market in Portugal. There are not so good news about that, because there is a kind of a void in our legislation about the CBD. Well, it's regarded from two perspectives. Either it can be considered a novel food. I mean, novel food is everything, all the food that were not consumed widely before 15 May 1997. So hemp seeds are considered novel foods, so they can be sold, as well as seed oil and all the treated hemp seeds. But the cannabinoids and extracts of cannabis sativa, they are considered novel foods, so they cannot be sold. The other perspective is, well, why can you sell it as a borderline product? I mean, something as a food supplement. Food supplements and the difference between food supplements and medicines can be explained as if you have a bubble, where is where are the normal functions, normal physiological functions? If you are acting inside the bubble, I mean inside the normal bubble, you are using food supplements, you are treating, you are maintaining, supporting, or optimizing the normal function. If you have a function that is not normal, but you want to normalize it, to correct it, or to modify it, I mean, something that is outside the bubble, you are treating something. So that means you have a medicine, not a supplement. I mean, these approaches can change in any time, but that's what we have now. And I think it's all for now. We are ready for questions. Carlos.
Welcome back. I think Tel Aviv is joining back. Thank you so much for your inputs in Portugal. I think we are ready for the Q&A session, and so many questions have already reached me. And please, again, bear in mind, I have them all on my phone. That's why I have it here. One question, and I think it's directed towards Lilach. Somebody asked, I have exported CBD products last year from Austria to Israel, but they never arrived. So I think he wants to know what's the reason, regulations.
Great. Okay, so that's a great question. So we talked very shortly about regulations, but I think it's better for a second to elaborate so you can understand my answer. So regulations, it's a very complicated world, especially in cannabis, because there's a lot of gray areas. If we start, the first country that was actually legalized cannabis was Canada, and it only happened 2 years ago to have kind of, you can use cannabis in every way. It started in 2018. It was legalized for like smoking and vaping, not only for medicinal use. And afterwards, you can use it starting 2 months ago. You can use it in all different like creams and food and beverages. Now, like I explained, CBD, it's one of the compounds inside the cannabis. Now, CBD is usually more the calming one. There's some regulations, like in the States that you hear about the Farm Bill. I don't know if you heard about 2018. They're allowed to grow hemp, which is a sort of cannabis that has lower THC, lower psychoactive ingredient, and there's the CBD. CBD, every country legalizes it in a different way. Some countries, it's part of the cannabis rules, and some it's different, and some it's only with hemp. For example, in Switzerland, you can sell products that are based with CBD, but the THC can only be until 0.3% of the whole product. In Israel, our legalization is only for medicinal use cannabis, meaning only doctors can prescribe patients with the specific indications to use the medical cannabis. Now, everything to do outside of the medical cannabis for what we call recreational use or adult use, just for the fun of it, okay, or what now is becoming the more well-being, that it's not prescribed by a doctor, it's not legal specifically in Israel. Further to that, there's no CBD or hemp market at all in Israel. Now we see that this is a very growing and fast paces in all over the world, especially in Europe. It's going to be amazing that you can find already CBD in cosmetics and different products in every drugstore. In England now it's growing, in Germany and France. I think in Portugal you can see it as well, but they will tell you a lot more about it. But unfortunately, whoever imported to Israel the CBD, so I'm very sad to tell you, we are not allowed to sell anything with CBD or any part of hemp. We don't have export from Israel. We've been growing for more than 10 years. We have 60,000 patients in Israel, so it's a closed market in Israel. Whatever is grown in Israel is staying in Israel. But the last few years, where really Israel is talking about trying to export to abroad as well, especially to Europe. But right now, because we can't export, we can't import in one hand, and CBD is illegal to use. But I know a lot of groups that are trying to work on it. But if you are interested to export and import CBD, there's a very, very large market. Now Asia is becoming a very big player in it, especially in the cosmetics market. To add CBD, you can add CBD from a whole plant, you can add CBD from hemp. And just to be clear, some people say hemp and some people say hemp oil. It is not the same. They have different regulations. Regulations are very, very complicated word, especially in cannabis, because there's so many little CBD, THC, what is it going to be used for? So I know it's complicated. I hope I tried to explain it in a more general way, but I'm just going to give you to remember this. You can use cannabis for medical use, okay? Which when someone says medical cannabis, they mean someone that uses cannabis for a medical use. Let's say people that have cancer, and when they get, so it helps them with their nausea, or it gets them to rise their appetite, to sleep better. So people with Parkinson, and that's medical use. And recreational use, it's more the cosmetics and well-being. I hope I answered, and good luck to everyone.
You answered the question very detailed. Thank you very much. I think we have another question for Lisbo. How much time does it take to have a cultivation manufacturing license?
Well, it depends, but I would say between 6 to 1 year, 6 months to 1 year to have the final license. I mean, you need to apply to Informed. Perhaps they will tell you something between 2 or 3 months, so you can start your cultivation and your operation. And then it will be at least more 6 months. So at the end, I will say 1 year to have the license.
Great. So I think I have now 2 questions for Lilach. Somebody's asking, are edibles legal in Israel, and what's the most common method of growing cannabis in Israel?
Okay, great. So unfortunately, like I said, regulations in Israel are not allowing for edibles, except if it's edibles for medicinal use. You can see kids that doctors don't feel comfortable prescribing them to smoke cannabis, and they don't really, they can't really take the chinkers, the oil, for certain ways. So you do see edibles only if it's for medical use, only for kids. Apparently, people don't have a lot of self-resistance, so they're afraid that if they give people to eat a cookie instead of smoking, they'll eat it a lot more. So if it's a kid, so they have a parent to actually say only 1 cookie and we'll stop. So that's for that. And you asked for about how growing, right?
What's the most common method of growing?
So because we only have medical cannabis in Israel and we have very strict regulations, like our friends in Portugal explained, here you have to grow with GMP manufacturing as well. So it has to be everything enclosed. So we have greenhouses that they're completely controlled environment, and now they're starting to do greenhouses. The difference between a greenhouse to an indoor facility is indoors is completely with walls, and the greenhouse is more nets and different. It's more, you can take it down a lot faster than actually a very structured building, which is an indoor. So now you're starting to see more and more indoor, especially because they want to control the environment to the peep, to have the best grade medical use. So you can see both of them. If you see hemp, which you can't see in Israel, you can see them outdoor freely.
Great, thank you very much. I think we have another question for Portugal. CBD oil is allowed. Why are CBD caps as a food supplement not allowed for now? Are there for any changes to be expected in the near future?
Yes, there could be changes in the future, hopefully, because it stays still in a gray area. But there are some products made with called cannabis oil, which is not more than seed oil. It's not CBD oil. That's not good for the cannabis, to the medical cannabis area, to have these confusions. I think everything should be clear. People should know what they are buying, but they cannot buy CBD oil, just seed oil.
Okay. Actually, right away, another question to you guys, to Portugal. Hello, do you need to rent the land and present building plans before applying to a license in Portugal?
Yes, so you can rent a land or you can own a land. You don't need to have you don't need to have the infrastructures already built. You just need, for example, a land, and you need the layout of your facilities in terms of knowing where is your greenhouse and warehouse, where is the entry and all that kind of stuff. So this is mandatory at the beginning of to apply for the license. Those are the main things that we need also to
Bear in mind.
deliver.
Sorry, Lilach, there was a follow-up question to this for you guys. Also, what are the regulations regarding pesticides in medical cannabis cultivation in Portugal?
That's a very important question.
Going right to Portugal.
Okay. Well, we have the GACP, the Good Agriculture and Collection Practices, to follow. And in GACP, you have a specific part about the control of the land, of the pesticides and all contaminants in the land. Although most of the cultures now are made indoors, inside the greenhouse, and with hydroponic systems, that is not a big problem. I mean, the foreign application of pesticides is not a big problem, but you have to control everything. You have to register everything you apply on plants as for possible future traceability needs. So I think this must be the same in Israel.
So yeah, actually, pesticides, it's one of the most common questions because people are consuming it for medical use, so they don't even think that you can have bad things. And if people are buying organic tomatoes and they don't want GMO corn, so they have to think about what they're taking for their health as well. So it's a very big deal about how you actually pesticide and with what and what does it react to. So we're very strict on that as well.
There is another question to Lilach. How many GMP facilities are currently in the two countries, and how many might be there in the future?
Okay, so I'll say only about Israel, and then you can say about Portugal. So in Israel, from 2008, we started with 8 growers, which are still active until today. Everyone who's growing in Israel has to have the GMP and the GAP licensing, and there's more facilities that are being built. About 5 right now are almost going to be already starting to grow and sell soon. And because once they start the export, so you'll see already a lot have a license, but once we allow the export to go from Israel, you'll see 10s coming up still in Israel. They're very much looking forward to it, and there's a lot of potential and willingness of Israel's market to go there.
Would you like to answer for Portugal?
Yeah, sure. So in Portugal right now, there are only 5 licenses granted to do the cultivation and the manufacturing. And as I explained on our presentation, there's a difference between GACP and the GMP. So for the GMP, there are only one company that is doing it, that is Tilray from Canada. So they have the license to grow and to do the extraction. So at this moment, it's the only company that is doing it. But I can tell you that in the next months or years, there will be a lot of more companies doing it because the investors that they want to come to Portugal, they want to grow, but they also want to get the most value product that will be the oils. So by saying this, I truly believe that in the next 1 year or 2 years, there will be more than 2 or 3 or even 5 manufacturer facilities with GMP.
I want to correct my answer. I said only how many growers there are in Israel, so I apologize. But there's more facilities because after the growing, so you have an extraction and you have the pharmaceuticals. So we have it's a whole value chain that continues and they all have GMP. So I apologize. We have 8 growers currently, 5 more joining in this next year. And we have more facilities that are doing the extractions and the pharmaceutical aspects of it.
There is one question now related to growing. What is the average production capacity of the growers?
In Israel.
In Israel and then in Portugal.
So it really changes with how you grow because as they mentioned, there's different ways. If it's hydroponic, if you're doing it, how many square meters, how many rounds are you doing it per year? So it's a very general question that I'm quite afraid. There's an average, but it's very dependent. I don't know if you want to answer in Portugal.
Yeah, I mean the answer is quite the same. I mean it depends on the technique that you choose to use. But for example, here in Portugal, just an average, you can get, for example, between 2 to 2.5 tons by year by hectare in a greenhouse. But once again, it depends on the technology that you'll have, definitely.
Yeah, and it's because it's rounds too. Usually you grow four rounds in a year, and some people can grow even 5, and some people are only succeeding with 2 and 3, depending on the pesticides and how many facilities. So when you decide to go into it, you have to be very careful when you do your numbers. So you do it slowly and gradually, and you grow because the farmers, it's an art. It's not just like growing anything. You have to understand really how this plant works.
I have another question that's that's probably relevant for many of our participants today. What are effective ways of distribution to sell this kind of product? Many retailers and even online marketing prohibits the sales and advertisement of this product. You want to start?
Sure. So it's very hard to sell if you can't do any Google ads or Facebook ads and write cannabis in most places, and the regulations are very strict about it. But on the other hand, you can see the demand. A lot of people want to buy it. They want to have a product that has CBD or other things from the cannabis. So the distributors are definitely noticing that they have a clientele. So there's different ways to actually go about it. I'll just give you an example. I don't know if I think everybody knows Martha Stewart or Snoop Dogg. So when they publish something on their magazine, Martha Stewart and Snoop Dogg are now combining cannabis or doing something at the Golden Globe Awards. So you see that there's a lot of trends coming along and people are willing. And you can actually buy products depending on the legalization. In the States, you can buy it in pharmacies if it's from hemp CBD. In Europe, you can buy if the THC is lower than 0.2. It's very important just to follow the regulations and not mention if it doesn't have any medical attributes. You can't write, it's good for sleeping. You can't write if you can't back it up with claims. And now the clients are very specific and they want to know exactly how you proved it and what is in it. They're getting very knowledgeable.
And we have, I think there's so many questions coming in, so I think I haven't asked this one regarding beverages. Have I? How long do you think until CBD is legalized in beverages? Maybe Portugal, you want to answer?
Go ahead.
I didn't catch the question.
Beverages. How long do you think until CBD is legalized in beverages? Is it possible to launch legally a beverage with medical purpose?
Not at this moment. I mean, anything you want to sell with medical purposes, with CBD or other cannabinoids, that's not difference legally. You must sell it on a pharmacy with a medical prescription. That's it. Everything else is not legal, except for the seeds and the seed oil, etc.
So I'll just, can I take a second? There's, when you want to use cannabis for medical uses, there's specific ways that are allowed and that have been shown and with clinical trials that they actually have an attribute to your body. If it's vaping it, if it's taking the oil, if it's eating. Other products like eating it in different foods or even eating in all foods, they have a certain way that they get absorbed because it's a different form. if you use it in drinking, if you use it on your hands or on your skin, it affects you differently, because most of the researches until now have been for smoking or vaping. So that's how they're legalizing for medical cannabis uses. And you have to remember, like they mentioned, novel food. It's there's different regulations to consuming cannabis through your mouth and putting it on your skin. All the regulations in the EU and the FDA in North America, they're different. So right now, beverages, it's harder to get it from even if you want it only for adult use. It's possible. Arizona iced tea. Right now, if you're in certain places in the States, you can buy Arizona iced tea. I don't know if you know it. Sweet iced tea with CBD. Carlsberg and Tuborg are doing beers with CBD, but it's in very specific places in the States that are legalized for it.
Thank you. That sounds really like there's so many applicable ways. Actually, there's one question from me that I'm reading now. Finally, what can I expect if I want to participate in the Zukunftsreise, in the trip that we're organizing together with you? Basically, the trip is designed for people that are active either in growing, that are interested in finding out what are the related technologies. It's about, for us, when we have this, when we offer these trips, that you can come to Israel and we design the program. It's very important to feel the startup nation, to understand the dynamic here and how business is done, how the interaction is with startups, with corporates. And we want to really present to you the huge scope of applications when it comes to cannabis and CBD and cannabis technology. So it's basically, I guess, totally worth it for any entrepreneur who is interested in this field, wants to dive into this world that is about to open up every day more and more. And we're very happy. I don't know if you wanna.
I'm very excited. I think
anything.
I'm very excited to be part of this. I think there's a lot of potential for people that are coming not only for growing from different markets, if it's cosmetics or well-being technologies that they want to develop. They're looking into product, into sales, into food and beverages. So there's a lot to see. We want to expose you here to the ecosystem. If it's from the government to the market, to the financial market, to the startups, and why is the government supporting it to do the startup, to have the startup nations and innovation, to show you labs of what's being developed, and even tell you about how are they doing big data and AI in cannabis. Is something that not a lot of people are doing, but or not a lot of people are thinking about, especially in cannabis. But it's a very, very big world. So there's a lot to explore, and we're gonna show you everything to open your mind.
So I hope this is enough reasons to have convinced you. So make sure to have a look. When we send out the slides, there will be the direct links to the Zukunftsreise, what to expect, a more detailed program. And you still have until beginning of February to sign up. There is more questions. I hope most of our participants are still there, so I guess everybody is very much interested. That's really cool. One question, Portugal and Israel. We start with Portugal maybe. Do you have any experience with chitosan-based products for protection of cannabis plants during cultivation? Do you have any input from Israel?
No,
it's
but
a very specific question.
Yeah, I don't know if it's allowed to send an email on these.
Of course, actually.
But if you want, whoever's sending this question specifically, I'm more than happy to dive in and find the answer. If you'll send your email, we'll get back to you.
We will actually provide you, as I mentioned before, with the slides, with contact details of our speakers. So if you, there is a lot of questions still coming in. So if we won't have enough time to cover everything, really do reach out. The speakers are more than happy to answer it. The contact details will be there, also the contact details of our offices.
So many questions.
So many questions. I think you have talked about this oil products, but there's one question. There are many CBD oil products out there, for example, on Amazon, which advertise as up to 20% of CBD content. Is this then illegal, or how can they sell it?
Okay, so it's a great question, because when you talk about CBD, it actually you have to understand where's the CBD coming from. Like I said, there's cannabis, and there's, let's say, the daughter plant or the sister plant that's called hemp. If we're talking about in the USA, hemp is legal to grow. And if you take CBD from hemp, it's legal. Now, if you take hemp from cannabis, not legal, and you can't sell it. Now, when people usually sell it over Amazon, I'm assuming it's hemp. It depending on the country, because if you're saying in Europe, you can do it from cannabis if the THC is lower. I would recommend, it's very important in the whole cannabis market, like any market, we want to be knowledgeable when we buy something. So it says up to 20. It could be very, very low margins. So when you go buy a product, I would recommend look at the test labs that go behind it and understand what it comes from. It's legal in Europe to buy products and to export from one another, depending on the place. I think Portugal said that they're not allowed to have oils there. So you're allowed to have it if it's CBD, depending on the other, how it was extracted actually, which is not very interesting to you, but if it's extracted in a certain way, it's legal in Europe, and if it has lower THC. So it's okay.
Okay. One more question for Portugal. I don't know if this now has been covered, but can I have a shop to sell CBD products in Portugal? Was that already covered?
No.
Only if it is a pharmacy.
Yeah.
Only if it's a pharmacy.
Yeah,
So,
it's Portugal and Israel are very similar in a lot of things, in the weather, in the culture, and in medical cannabis there as well. The only big difference that in Portugal, correct me if I'm wrong, you can export to other places, and it's a great hub to do it from, and in Israel you can't.
Yeah.
Let's take let's take two more questions. The latest one that came in a general manner, could you describe the extraction process? Who wants to go? Portugal, Israel?
I'm happy for Portugal to go.
Go ahead. Extraction.
Are you happy to?
Well,
it's a very technical question, but we can try.
Very general manner, they wrote.
Okay. Yeah, because you can, in a very short, you can have two ways that in industrial pharmacy like the extracts of cannabis. The first way, I think, it's about it doesn't have contaminants. It's the supercritical CO2 extraction. I mean, you compress the gas, you cold it, and you transform it into a liquid, kind of a liquid, and you extract the cannabinoids and the smell, the aromas, terpenes. Yeah. You start sometimes too much things, and you can use alcohol to extract. Pharmaceutical industry is used to use alcohol extracts too, and they don't dislike too much. But I think the best way to extract is really CO2, because you at the end of the path you lose the CO2 and you have theoretically no contaminants.
Right.
Yeah, so there's a lot of different ways, like they said, CO2 and ethanol, unfortunately, are the most common ways to extract in Israel, and I know in Israel, and I think in other places as well. They both have a lot of disadvantages as much as advantages. Like they said, terpenes are the smells that we're losing, and it has a lot of medicinal use. That's why it's very important, not only because of the smell and the aroma, but there's different ways that are getting developed slowly, that the extraction to have, and what extraction formulation. Is it going to be oil? Is it going to be rubber? Is it going to be powder? So you can actually find different ways at the end product, if that was the meaning.
I guess you guys answered the question perfectly. One last question. Do you have companies available looking for an investment?
So I'm happy to say that Israel, like I said, we have more than 150 startups. A lot are looking for investments, and more than investments, everybody's happy for a strategic partner to go to Europe, because that's where a lot of people are looking for. If we have the know-how and other people have actually the means in the market, it's a great collaboration. But even just to invest in Israel, so you can find in a very, very variety of options, if it's in startups and technology and growing and developing in R&D, or R&D, you can actually have a lot of options. You can invest in specific researchers and labs if it's like in the university or in a private company. So there's a lot of options. I'm more than happy to examine options if someone is looking in a specific area. I'm happy to help and explore and understand what are the potentials in Israel for this partnership.
And
great. I think we. You want to add something? Please go ahead.
Sorry. I thought it was for both of us.
I just looked at the time. Please go ahead.
I mean, in Portugal, it's like the same. There are a lot of people trying to get into the business of cannabis. They know exactly what they want to do, but sometimes they don't have enough money to start their own company. So yeah, I would say there are some opportunities here in Portugal as an investor. Of course, they are also looking, as our Israel colleague said, they are looking for technological strategically partners. Sorry. Yeah, I would say there are a lot of opportunities here at this moment.
Sounds good. I think opportunity is also should be the final word. So thank you very much. There is a few more questions, but I think we have run out of time. So please feel free to send us your questions. We'll make sure they're forwarded to the speaker or approach them directly. One last remark on the Zukunftsreise happening beginning of March. Do have a look. We have already a few registrations, and I think now after this webinar, there's a lot of interest, obviously, in this topic. And yeah, make sure to check it out with Lilach. And
we hope to see you here soon.
Yeah, it will be warmer also in March. Don't worry.
Sunny as well.
Yes. So I hope we have convinced you. I would like to thank our colleagues in Portugal, the speakers. Thank you very much for taking the time, for all the exciting inputs on this topic that is in the news on top of the heads of many people these days. So thank you very much, and thank you very much especially to all the participants, to the big interest, to all the questions. We're very happy about that, and yeah, we hope to see you soon in Israel. And yeah, feel free to drop us an email either to Portugal or to us in Tel Aviv. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a good afternoon.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.